Have you ever said, "I'm sorry," and almost instantly felt smaller? It's strange, isn't it? Two tiny words, so soft, so familiar, yet they can make you feel like you've just handed away a piece of yourself. In that moment, it's as if the air shifts. You can sense the other person standing a little taller, while you shrink just enough to notice. It happens so quickly you might not even realize it. Maybe you were just trying to smooth over an awkward moment. Maybe you wanted to be polite. Maybe you didn't even mean it in a deep way. It just slipped out, like a reflex. But still, there it is. I'm sorry. We're taught that apologizing is a good thing, a sign of respect and kindness. And often it is. But here's the part most people never think about. Every apology carries a hidden cost. It's not just about admitting fault. It's about shifting the balance of power in a conversation, even if only for a moment. Because when you apologize, you're doing more than saying you regret something. You're placing yourself lower than the other person. You're telling them, "You have the right to judge me." And whether they consciously realize it or not, people feel that shift. Think about the last time you apologized when you didn't really have to. Maybe it was in a meeting, when someone questioned your work. Maybe it was at a dinner party, when you accidentally interrupted someone. Or maybe it was online, when a stranger challenged your opinion. Did you notice how, after apologizing, the other person seemed just a little more in control of the situation? That's the hidden power of "I'm sorry." It's not always about fixing a problem. Sometimes it's about surrendering ground. And once you give that ground away, it's hard to take it back. Over the next parts, we're going to explore why this happens, how it affects your authority, and what one of history's sharpest minds, Niccolo Machiavelli, would tell you about holding your ground. Because sometimes the real power move is not in saying, "I'm sorry," but in saying nothing at all. From the time we're old enough to talk, the message is drilled into us. Say you're sorry. Parents insist on it when we bump into another child. Teachers require it when we speak out of turn. We hear it in cartoons, in bedtime stories, in school assemblies. The words are presented as a kind of magic key, something that can unlock forgiveness, repair broken trust, and instantly make things right. And in many parts of life, this lesson works. In friendships, family relationships, and moments of genuine mistake, an apology can heal faster than anything else. When the goal is harmony and closeness, saying "I'm sorry" can be the bridge that brings people back together. But here's where the trouble begins. Life outside of childhood isn't always about harmony. The adult world, whether in the office, in politics, or in subtle social games, runs on something deeper than kindness. It runs on perception. And perception determines power. We grow up thinking that apologizing always shows maturity. What no one tells us is that, in certain situations, it signals something else entirely: submission. An apology can turn you from an equal into a subordinate in the blink of an eye. The problem isn't that apologizing is always bad. It's that we've been trained to do it automatically, without asking whether it's actually necessary. This reflex makes sense when we're kids, because children live under authority: parents, teachers, adults. But when you carry that same reflex into a world where you're supposed to hold authority, you end up giving it away without even realizing it. Machiavelli, writing over 500 years ago, understood this perfectly. He knew that the person who controls the frame, the story people tell themselves about what's happening, holds the real power. And every time you apologize unnecessarily, you hand that frame to someone else. You tell them, "You decide my standing here." In childhood, that might have been the lesson that kept you out of trouble. But in the adult game of power, it can be the very thing that keeps you from winning. More than 5 centuries ago, Niccolo Machiavelli looked at the world and saw something most people still overlook today. Power is perception. It doesn't matter what the truth is. It doesn't matter what your intentions are. What matters is the story people believe when they look at you. You can be completely innocent and still look guilty if you frame yourself the wrong way. And few things reframe you faster than an unnecessary apology. Think about what you're silently saying when you apologize without cause. I accept guilt. You have the authority to judge me. I want your approval. You may not intend to send these messages, but perception doesn't care about your intentions. People will hear them anyway. And once they do, the balance shifts. When you apologize too quickly, you voluntarily step down from your position of equality, or even leadership, and place the other person above you. Suddenly, they're the one with the power to forgive, dismiss, or even punish. You've given them a role they may not have had before, and they'll feel it. Machiavelli understood that in politics and in life, weakness often isn't about your actions. It's about the way you present those actions. Leaders, whether kings or CEOs, sometimes refuse to apologize even when the evidence is against them. Not because they're arrogant, but because they understand the cost of public submission. Once you kneel, it's hard to stand tall again. And here's the dangerous part. Once people see you as lower, they'll start treating you that way. You've shifted the frame, and it's hard to shift it back. This doesn't mean you should never say, "I'm sorry." It means that every apology you give must be intentional, a strategic move, not a reflex. If you give it away too easily, you're not just being nice. You're handing over the most important thing you have in the game of power, the perception that you belong at the top of the table. An apology, when used wisely, can be a sign of strength, but when it's used without thought, it can be a weapon against yourself. The difference between the two comes down to timing and intent. If you've truly made a mistake, one that has caused real harm, and you care about preserving an important relationship, then a well-placed apology can be powerful. It shows accountability. It shows that you value the connection more than your ego. When delivered with confidence, it can even enhance your reputation. But here's where most people fail. They apologize too quickly, too easily, and for the wrong reasons. They apologize not because it's necessary, but because it's comfortable. They want to smooth over the tension. They want to avoid awkwardness. They want to be liked. And in doing so, they give away something far more valuable than they realize: the perception of authority. Think of every conversation, every confrontation as a kind of battlefield. There's always a fight for position. Who controls the tone? Who sets the terms? Who defines the reality of what just happened? The one who apologizes first, without thinking, is usually the one who lowers themselves. The one who holds their ground, calm and unshaken, rises in the eyes of everyone watching. That's why the most effective leaders, negotiators, and power players rarely rush into an apology. They pause. They assess. They decide whether saying "I'm sorry" will strengthen their position or weaken it. If it will weaken it, they stay silent. Machiavelli would tell you that an apology is like a chess move. It's not about how it feels in the moment. It's about what it sets up for the moves that follow. And if your timing is off, you've just handed your opponent the winning position. So before the words leave your mouth, ask yourself, am I apologizing because it's truly necessary, or because I want to escape discomfort? If it's the latter, you're not repairing anything. You're surrendering. Most people think that if they don't respond right away, they'll look weak. In reality, the opposite is often true. In the hands of someone confident, silence is one of the most powerful weapons you can use. When someone attacks you, maybe it's a sharp remark in a meeting, a sarcastic jab at a dinner table, or a snide comment online. Their goal is usually simple: provoke you. They want to see you react. They want you to defend yourself. They want to drag you into a game where they control the rules. And most people fall for it. They rush to explain. They try to clear up misunderstandings. They scramble to prove their innocence. But the moment you start doing that, you've stepped onto their battlefield. Now you're dancing to their rhythm. Silence breaks that rhythm. When you say nothing, you're not giving them the satisfaction they came for. Instead, you leave them hanging in uncomfortable uncertainty. They expected a fight, and now there's just nothing. That nothingness becomes a mirror, forcing them to sit with their own words. And for many people, that's unbearable. Silence also forces people to project. They start wondering, why isn't he reacting? Does she know something I don't? Is he planning something? Your stillness becomes a blank canvas for their imagination, and most of the time, they'll paint it with strength. And perhaps most importantly, silence flips the power dynamic. By not engaging, you're showing that their attack isn't even worth your energy. You remain the one in control, not because you shouted the loudest, but because you refused to be pulled down into a pointless struggle. History's most intimidating figures weren't the ones who barked back at every insult. They were the ones who sat calmly, hands still, eyes steady, letting their enemies exhaust themselves trying to get a reaction. In the game of power, silence isn't emptiness, it's presence. And the person who can sit quietly in the storm often leaves the other side wondering what kind of storm is coming back their way. Every attack, whether it's a public insult, a quiet accusation, or a sarcastic comment, comes with a script. The attacker has already imagined how you'll respond. They expect you to get defensive. They expect you to argue. They expect you to rush into an apology or explanation. The moment you follow that script, you give them exactly what they wanted. You confirm their control over the situation. But when you stay silent, you rip their script in half. Silence is unsettling because it denies people the emotional payoff they're hunting for. Humans are wired to seek closure. When we throw a verbal punch, we want to see the impact. When we don't get it, the punch feels wasted. That's why a calm, wordless response can be more powerful than the most cutting comeback. Silence creates discomfort. In conversation, people hate dead air. The longer you hold it, the more they feel the urge to fill it. And in doing so, they often reveal more than they meant to. They might soften their tone, backtrack, or even expose the weakness in their own position. Silence also forces projection. When you don't explain yourself, people start inventing reasons for your calm. Maybe he knows something I don't. Maybe she's planning something. Maybe I went too far. This works in your favor because their mind fills the blank space with power. Finally, silence reframes the power dynamic. Responding defensively says, "You have the right to question me." Silence says, "Your attack isn't worth my attention." Think about the most commanding people you've seen. In history, in leadership, even in your own life. They weren't the ones who argued every point. They were the ones who could sit still, looking completely unmoved, forcing others to chase their approval. The beauty of breaking the opponent's script is that it flips control without you lifting a finger. They came for a fight. You gave them a void. And in that void, they start to lose their footing, while you remain firmly planted. Real-world example number 1. The workplace accusation. Picture this. You're sitting in a meeting with your team. The conversation is moving along when, suddenly, someone says in front of everyone, "You made a mistake in that report." The room goes still. Heads turn. Every eye is now on you. Most people, caught off guard, panic. They rush to say something like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I'll fix it right away." It feels like the right thing to do in the moment, to clear the air and show you're cooperative. But in reality, two subtle but damaging things just happened. 1. You admitted fault before you even knew the full accusation. 2. You placed yourself in a defensive, lower position. Now the accuser controls the frame. They are the authority, and you are the one justifying yourself. Even if the accusation is false or exaggerated, you've already lowered your standing. The Machiavellian approach is completely different. First, pause. Don't rush to fill the silence. Let the moment hang for a beat or two. The quiet signals that you're not rattled. Second, make steady, unbroken eye contact. This is subtle but powerful. It communicates control, confidence, and a refusal to be cornered. Third, instead of apologizing or defending yourself, shift the burden of proof back to them. Calmly say, "Interesting. Can you explain exactly what you mean?" Now the dynamic has flipped. You're not scrambling to justify yourself. You're the calm authority asking for clarification. This forces them to expand on their claim, and in doing so they might reveal they misunderstood, realize they overstated, or backtrack entirely. By holding your ground and asking a question instead of apologizing, you've kept control of the narrative. In the Machiavellian playbook, the one asking the questions controls the frame, and the one controlling the frame controls the power. Real-world example number 2, the public jab. Now imagine you're not in a meeting but in a more casual setting, maybe a work lunch, a dinner party, or a gathering with friends. The conversation is flowing when someone decides to get a laugh at your expense. It might sound like, "Well, we all know you're not exactly a morning person," or, "Careful, don't let them handle the budget. Remember last time?" A few people laugh. All eyes briefly turn to you, waiting to see your reaction. Most people in that moment feel a flash of embarrassment. They might give a nervous chuckle, or worse, apologize as if the joke has some truth to it. "Oh, sorry if I messed things up before. Yeah, I'm terrible at mornings, my bad." It seems harmless. You think you're making the moment pass quickly, but in reality, you've just done 2 things. 1, you've accepted the role of the punchline. 2, you've reinforced the joker's position as the one in control of the moment. The Machiavellian approach is different. First, stay composed. Don't flinch. Don't rush to defend yourself. Second, smile slightly. This is important. It signals that you're unbothered, but you're not seething. You're in control of your own emotions. Then, in a calm, even tone, deliver a line like, "I see you needed the attention. Carry on." This simple statement flips the frame. Suddenly, the spotlight is on them, not you. You've exposed the underlying truth, that their jab was less about you and more about their own need to be noticed. Here's what this does. It reclaims your authority without escalating the situation. It shifts audience perception, making the joker seem small. It shows you're confident enough to call out the game without getting dragged into it. Everyone watching will remember that moment, and they'll remember who stayed in control. Real-world example number 3, the social media trap. Picture this. You've just posted something online, maybe a video, an opinion, or even a personal update. At first, the responses are friendly. Then, out of nowhere, a comment pops up. "This is so wrong. You should apologize." It's public. People can see it. Your first instinct? You feel that tightening in your chest. You want to reply. You want to explain. You want to set the record straight before this turns into a bigger deal. Most people do exactly that. They type out a long explanation or a quick apology, thinking it will make the critic go away. But here's the truth. Critics like this aren't looking for the truth. They're looking for a reaction. They want you to feel uncomfortable. They want to see you squirm. And once you give them that, they've already won. The Machiavellian approach? Give them nothing. Option 1. Complete silence. Don't acknowledge the comment at all. Without your reaction, their attempt to provoke you falls flat. It's like throwing a punch into empty air. Option 2. Post something entirely unrelated the next day. A new photo, a different topic, a quote, a win. This sends a subtle but powerful message. Your attempt to drag me into a fight didn't even slow me down. Both options rob the critic of the reward they were hoping for, your emotional energy. And online, where attention is the currency, denying them that attention is the ultimate form of control. Over time, this builds a reputation. People see that you don't take the bait. They see that you're unshakable. And in the noisy, reactive world of social media, calm confidence stands out like a spotlight. Remember, online battles rarely end with a winner. But if you can avoid stepping into the arena at all, you've already won. After everything we've covered, you might think Machiavelli's law is simple. Never apologize. But that's not quite true. A well-placed apology can be a powerful tool, if you use it on your terms. The key is position. You never apologize from a place of weakness. You never apologize while you're still under attack. You apologize only when you've already re-established control and everyone knows it. Think of a king. The kingdom is secure. the enemy is defeated. The people trust his authority. In that moment, the king steps forward and says, "I regret what happened, and I will make it right." That's not weakness, that's strength. It's not submission, it's magnanimity. He gives the gift of forgiveness not because he has to, but because he can. That's how you use an apology in power games. You do it when the narrative is already yours, when you control the frame, when no one can mistake it for begging. At that point, your apology makes you look gracious, secure, and untouchable. But here's the danger. Apologize too soon, and you flip the frame against yourself. You tell the world, "I'm desperate for approval. Please accept me." And once people sense that, they will always see you as lower in status. So before you ever say, "I'm sorry," ask yourself 3 questions. 1. Am I doing this to maintain control or to seek approval? 2. Have I already secured my position in this situation? 3. Will this apology strengthen my authority or weaken it? If you can't answer all 3 with confidence, hold your tongue. Let silence speak for you. Because in the game of power, perception is the currency, and you can't spend it carelessly. Apologize too freely, and you bankrupt your authority. Apologize with strategy, and you can raise it to new heights. Machiavelli's final lesson is this: the one who controls the story controls the power. Speak less than they expect, apologize less than they want, and never forget, sometimes the most powerful move is no move at all.